Strictly Medicinal Materia Medica series. Today we're looking at willow. This is the weeping willow next to the Iowa River here in Iowa City, Iowa. The month of September, verging on October. The weeping willow is Salix babylonica, isn't it? Yes. The source of the anti-inflammatory compound known as salicin, which is also, of course, the original starting material for aspirin, the famous anticoagulant, blood thinner, and also anti-inflammatory. The bark of the willow tree is loaded with salicylic acid, and it is the tips, the growing tips of the branches that's most commonly used. This can be harvested during the growing season and stripped of leaves, and then using a knife you whittle off the outer bark. If it's green enough and slippy enough, as it were, then you can just peel it off with your thumbnails and make it into long strips, or as it's known in herbal medicine, quills. And these quills are then dried in the shade in a place with good air movement, and they can be then chopped up into short pieces like half an inch long or so, using usually a scissors, very commonly employed, or a pair of sharp snips. Don't snip your thumb, just snip the bark. And then, of course, this can be used in making a decoction, which is a way of extracting barks. You would take a handful of the willow bark pieces and put them in cold water and cover at the back of the counter overnight, and then in the morning bring that to a simmer and leave simmering for about 15 minutes, and then allow to cool and strain and drink. This would be then the tea of willow bark. Another way to do it would be to make a tea by simply steeping. So as opposed to a decoction, which is the overnight soaked and boiled method, then the tea is just a standard teaspoon per cup of water, and cover the teaspoon of willow bark pieces in a cup and cover and allow to steep for at least 5 minutes, and then strain and drink. And this usually will kill the pain from a beginning headache. It will also serve as an anti-inflammatory for treating rheumatism, various kinds of bodily aches and pains, muscle complaints of a mild to moderate nature. It's not a real strong analgesic. It is a moderate analgesic and anti-inflammatory. Then, of course, let's go in a little bit closer. The tips of the willow branches, especially when harvested in the spring, are the source of growth hormones, and these can be used for making a sun tea, which then can be used for watering in seeds and cuttings, and it will encourage germination, and also it will encourage the growth of the cutting and the rooting of cuttings. So the way that you can do that is to cut a number of the branches and bundle them, and you can even wrap the base of the branches with a willow whip, because willows are very pliable and won't really break. They're used in basketry for that purpose, and for making weir nets, and Native American people use them extensively. Then that can be that little willow brush or broom, as it were, can be placed in a bucket of water and left in the greenhouse or just out in the sun in a very warm place And then every day you come by and you whip the water with the broom, and that aerates the water and also extracts the plant hormones or the growth hormones from the tips of the willow, and then that, of course, can be used for watering in your transplants or soaking your seeds overnight, and it will certainly improve the germination rate and the growth of the seedlings to which it is applied. There are several different species of willow. There's certainly the white willow, which is a highly variable species that you find growing wild at the edge of waterways all throughout the United States. It has a very good viability for growing in the various zones. It's probably quite useful in zones 2 to 9. And then there's also Salix purpurea, which is the red osier willow, and that one has the highest salicylic acid content, and this one is a shorter and more purple type of willow that is also widely available, and that is used also for stabilizing stream banks, and like this beautiful weeping willow, it provides protection for wildlife and is very resistant to the ravages of winter storms and ice, flowing water, and flood. It is a willow. It will survive for many, many years. This particular willow is one where I walked and rested as a little boy in the 1960s when I lived in Iowa City, and it's still here on the banks of the Iowa River. So that's a little bit about the use of willow. In terms of its cultivation, certainly any of the long-growing whips can be snipped up into 6-inch pieces and then placed with the buds up. The part towards the trunk of the tree would be put down in a vase or a glass of water and left in the sun, and this will throw roots after some time, and each one of those little slips can be replanted and used to grow a new clone of the mother. Weeping willow, a tree worth knowing, a tree worth using, harmless and wise as an ages-old tree will tend to be.